Growing up, I was always in the shadows. My sister Emma was perfect, smart, popular, and effortlessly adored. I, on the other hand, was the invisible one, constantly overlooked and compared. Every achievement of mine felt like a quiet echo beneath the weight of her brilliance. But as I grew older, something inside me changed. I decided to stop being the second choice. This is the story of how I finally broke free from the suffocating expectations, reclaimed my life, and found the strength to choose myself. It's a journey of pain, betrayal, but ultimately of freedom. My name is Rachel, and for as long as I can remember, I've lived in the glow of someone else's spotlight, just far enough outside its reach to feel the warmth, but never bask in it. My older sister, Emma, was the center of that light. 2 years my senior, she had this magnetic energy that pulled everyone in, especially our parents. She didn't just succeed, she shined. Every test she aced, every soccer goal she scored, every charm-soaked smile she flashed felt like a standing ovation. And me? I was the one quietly clapping in the wings, hoping someone might look my way. It started subtly. I remember being 7 and bringing home a finger painting I'd poured my heart into. I'd mixed colors with such excitement, imagining it hanging proudly on the fridge. But the moment I walked in, Emma was already showing off her spelling bee medal. The painting ended up in a drawer. Forgotten. Just like that, I learned where I stood. Over time, it wasn't just about accomplishments. Emma could do no wrong. When she stayed out past curfew, it was brushed off with, "She's just social." When I came home 10 minutes late, it was a lecture about responsibility. Her missteps were quirks. Mine were failures. And those little moments, those constant, quiet reminders that I was always one step behind, stacked up like bricks around my heart. I used to tell myself I was being dramatic, sensitive. After all, our parents never outright said they loved her more. But love doesn't need to be spoken to be felt or withheld to be missed. It showed in the way they looked at her, pride beaming in their eyes, and in how their tone softened when they said her name. With me, it was different, sharper, more clipped, as if I was a reminder of something less than what they wanted. I tried to earn their attention. I studied hard, made the honor roll, joined clubs, kept my nose clean. But no matter what I did, Emma's shadow stretched farther. At family gatherings, relatives would ask, "So what's Emma up to now?" Their eyes only flicked to me as an afterthought. I learned to smile through it, to laugh at the jokes made at my expense, to be the easygoing one, the quiet one. But inside, I was screaming. When I turned 18, I left. Not with anger or a dramatic exit, just quiet resolve. I packed my things, signed the lease on a tiny apartment, and disappeared into a new chapter. It wasn't just a move, it was a decision to step out of that shadow and finally stand in my own light. I didn't know exactly who I was yet, but I knew I couldn't figure it out while living a life written by someone else. That day, as I closed the door behind me, I wasn't sad. I was free. For the first time in my life, I belonged to myself. Living alone for the first time was like stepping into a world painted in colors I'd never seen before. There was silence, yes, but not the cold, isolating kind. It was the kind that made space for clarity. No more dinner table comparisons. No more walking on eggshells, hoping to be noticed without stepping too far out of line. In that silence, I began to breathe. And in that breath, I met James. He wasn't flashy or loud, but he saw me. Really saw me. Not as a shadow, not as Emma's little sister, not as someone struggling to measure up, just Rachel, funny, passionate, a little messy, and full of dreams. With him, I didn't have to try so hard to be enough. I just was. That kind of acceptance is powerful. It's healing. Together, we built something I never thought I'd have, a life where I mattered without needing to prove it. My job took off. I made friends who didn't know or care about my family history. For the first time, my laughter wasn't muted by insecurity. I started believing I could rewrite my story, but the past doesn't let go that easily. It started with little comments passed through family friends. Emma had been talking, spinning stories about my wild lifestyle, warning our parents that I was headed for some kind of personal disaster. At first I laughed. It was absurd. Me? Wild? I barely drank. I worked full-time, paid my bills, and volunteered on weekends. But Emma knew exactly what she was doing. She didn't need proof, just enough poison to plant doubt. And my parents drank it in. When I called them out, explained the truth, even offered to take a drug test, just to prove how ridiculous it was, they didn't ask for clarification. They didn't question her. They waved me off, told me I was being defensive, dramatic, paranoid. That moment broke something in me, because it wasn't just about Emma's lies, it was about their choice to believe them without hesitation, about how little faith they had in me. I wasn't asking for blind devotion, I just wanted a chance. But they made it clear. Emma's word was gospel, mine was background noise, so I cut the cord. No shouting, no tearful goodbye, just silence. For nearly 2 years, I didn't call, didn't visit. Holidays passed in quiet peace, and while there were moments I missed them, I didn't miss the pain. I didn't miss the weight of always falling short. And then came the call. Dad was in the hospital. Heart attack. Serious. I didn't hesitate. Not because I'd forgiven them, but because I wanted to. Because I still believed in the version of me that could choose compassion without self-betrayal. I went. I stood by his bed. I held his hand. And when he opened his eyes, there was something like regret in them. Maybe even love. In that room, I let a flicker of hope return. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. I didn't know yet. Hope is fragile like that. But I wanted to believe. I'd like to say things got better after the hospital. That we all walked away, changed, humbled, ready to love each other better. For a while, it even seemed true. There were tentative phone calls, quiet apologies, and Sunday lunches filled with something that almost resembled warmth. I let myself believe we were healing. And maybe we were, until money got involved. It started small. My parents had fallen on hard times. Dad's recovery meant early retirement, and Mom's boutique had been struggling even before that. Their savings were thin. The mortgage was suffocating. Emma, unsurprisingly, wasn't stepping up. She claimed she was between jobs, again, though somehow her lifestyle never missed a beat. New clothes, vacations, spa weekends documented in filtered Instagram posts. I wrestled with the decision for days. Helping them financially meant crossing boundaries I'd only just rebuilt. But I also knew what it felt like to be abandoned when you needed someone most. And I didn't want to be that person. Maybe this was my chance to prove that I wasn't who they'd painted me to be all those years. Maybe, just maybe, this would mean something. So I helped. Quietly. No strings. I paid off some debts. I helped with groceries. I even covered a few of Dad's medical bills. And to their credit, my parents responded with something new. Respect. For the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't the afterthought. They praised my responsibility, thanked me, sincerely. When Emma threw her usual tantrums, trying to sow chaos and twist narratives, they pushed back. They told her to stop. They defended me. It was disorienting, but it felt good, like being seen in a way I had only dreamed of. Still, there was a voice in the back of my mind, whispering, warning. Would they love me the same if the money ran out? If I stopped being useful? But I pushed it away, focused on the future, on brighter things. James proposed in the fall, on a crisp October evening under the golden trees in the park where we'd had our first date. It was perfect, simple, sincere, and full of promise. I cried. He cried. It was the kind of moment that rewrites the past, that makes everything hurt a little less. Planning the wedding felt like building a dream from scratch. I imagined a ceremony filled with love and laughter. I imagined my family there, not perfect, but present, together, finally together. The invitations went out early. I made sure it was a date everyone could manage. I sent my parents a personalized card. I even called Emma. I told her I hoped she'd come, that it would mean a lot. Hope, I've learned, is a delicate thing. It lives in quiet corners of your heart, even when logic warns you to be careful. But I believed. I believed that maybe, just maybe, things had changed. And belief, I would soon learn, can be the beginning of heartbreak. Weddings are strange things. They're supposed to be joyful, sacred, unforgettable. And mine was all of those things, just not in the way I imagined. The morning of my wedding, I woke up with a kind of nervous electricity humming under my skin. My heart raced with excitement, but there was a knot in my stomach too. A whisper of doubt I couldn't quite silence. James said it was just pre-wedding jitters, and maybe part of it was. But deeper down, I knew what it really was. I was waiting for them. My dress was everything I'd dreamed. Elegant, timeless, with delicate lace that danced along the sleeves. My hair was pinned back in soft curls, makeup light enough to feel like me, just brighter. James looked like a dream in his tailored suit. My friends fluttered around, beaming, fussing, keeping the energy high. And yet, I kept glancing at the entrance, kept checking my phone. Nothing. The ceremony was set for 3 p.m. By 2:30, the air was tight with anticipation. Guests were arriving, taking their seats, offering hugs and kind words. I sat in the dressing room, phone in hand, willing it to light up with a message. "We're running late," or "We're here." But the screen stayed dark. At 2:55, James slipped in, concern in his eyes. "We don't have to start yet," he said softly. "We'll wait if you want." And we did. 15 minutes, then 30, still nothing. Finally, it happened. Not a call, not a text. A notification. A photo from Emma's Instagram story, her smiling face. Mom and Dad on either side of her, mid-laugh, glasses raised in a toast. The caption read, "Nothing like a spontaneous family lunch. Dark quality time." I stared at the screen in disbelief, as if the image would somehow change if I looked hard enough. But it didn't. They were there, together, at her place, on my wedding day. No car trouble, no emergencies, no last-minute delay, just a choice. They chose her. Again. I didn't cry. Not then. I went out and walked down that aisle on trembling legs and held James's hand like a lifeline. I smiled for the pictures. I said my vows. And when it was all done, when the guests had danced and laughed and left, I sat alone under the fairy lights and stared up at the sky. That night, I sent a message to the only 2 contacts I never thought I'd block. "You've made your choice. From now on, consider yourselves strangers." Then I deleted their numbers. No drama, no second drafts. Just truth. It wasn't an act of anger. It was an act of mercy, for myself. A quiet drawing of the line that had been smudged and crossed too many times. I went to bed beside the man who had never once made me feel less than, and for the first time in my life, I let the shadows go. I had given them every chance, but I was done chasing love that had to be earned. After the wedding, there was silence, the kind that settles deep, like dust in an abandoned house. No calls, no apology, not even an explanation. I half expected them to stay gone, to dig in, double down, and act like they hadn't missed the most important day of my life. But within a week, the messages began trickling in. At first, it was just a few texts. "We're sorry things got confused. We didn't think it would matter if we stopped by Emma's first." Stopped by? Their stop by had lasted the whole day. Then came the calls. Missed ones. Voicemails I didn't listen to. The sound of my mother's voice had become something I no longer trusted. I couldn't tell if it was concern or manipulation anymore. And honestly, I didn't care. They had chosen their side. And I had chosen peace. But peace doesn't always come easily when you've been someone's emotional punching bag for most of your life. Emma wasn't content to leave it alone. She began her own brand of damage control, cryptic posts on social media, vague enough to keep plausible deniability, but sharp enough that friends messaged me asking, "Are you okay?" And "What's really going on with your family?" I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Instead, I blocked her too. I was tired of people writing my story in invisible ink, pretending it didn't exist while still making sure everyone could feel it. The worst part? People I hadn't heard from in years. cousins, old family friends started sliding into my inbox with the same chorus. Life's too short. Family is everything. You should talk to them. They didn't know. They never saw what I saw. They didn't see the way Mom stormed into my apartment unannounced a month after the wedding. I hadn't given her my address. She got it from a distant relative I'd foolishly trusted. She barged in as if nothing had happened, as if missing my wedding was some minor misstep she could explain away with a hug and a guilt trip. "You're being dramatic," she spat. "You always twist things into some big betrayal." It was like being 12 again, blamed for crying while Emma was praised for telling me I was too boring to play with. "I'm not twisting anything," I told her, voice calm but firm. "You weren't there. You made a choice, and now I'm making mine." Then she said it. One word. Crazy. The air left the room. That's when I knew it wasn't just about the wedding. It never was. It was about control, about maintaining the narrative that Emma was the sun and I was the orbiting moon. The moment I refused to play along, I became the villain. Soon after, legal letters arrived. Claims that I owed them money for investments in my upbringing. I laughed at first, then I cried, then I got a lawyer. Because sometimes love doesn't come wrapped in warmth and understanding. Sometimes it comes with strings, and scissors are the only answer. Filing charges against your own family isn't something anyone dreams of doing. But then again, I never imagined my mother would threaten legal action over my childhood. I never thought I'd need to forward her emails to a lawyer or record calls just to protect myself from the people who were supposed to love me the most. The day I sat across from my attorney, hands trembling slightly over a mug of untouched tea, something inside me hardened. Not bitter, just resolved. I told her everything: the uninvited apartment visit, the harassment, the veiled threats cloaked in nostalgia. She nodded with the calm of someone who had heard this story before, too many times probably. I wasn't special in my pain, but I was finally doing something about it. The legal steps were difficult, tedious, emotionally draining, but necessary. And in the middle of all that chaos, James and I made a decision that felt like an exhale after years of holding our breath. We moved. Not just a new apartment, a new city, a fresh zip code, a clean slate, somewhere with no memories tied to living in someone else's shadow. The morning we left, I took one last look at the apartment that had been both my sanctuary and my battlefield. A place where I cried after conversations with my parents, but also danced barefoot in the kitchen with James to bad 90s music. A place where I learned how to be alone without being lonely. As the movers loaded up the final boxes, I stood at the door, clutching a photo, one of the only ones I kept from my childhood. Me at maybe 6, arms outstretched on a swing, wind in my hair, pure joy across my face. Emma wasn't in that photo. Neither were Mom or Dad. Just me, free. I packed it last. The new home wasn't grand, but it was ours. Quiet streets, sun-drenched rooms, neighbors who waved. James hung up fairy lights on the balcony, and we bought a ridiculously large couch because we could. We held dinner parties with friends who knew our story, and still chose us. There were nights, of course, when the grief knocked at the door, when I wondered if I'd gone too far, if healing could have come without so much finality. But every time I doubted, I reminded myself, they made their choice, and now I'm making mine. Freedom, I've learned, doesn't always come with a dramatic exit or a grand speech. Sometimes it comes in soft moments, waking up to sunlight with no anxiety in your chest, laughing over burnt toast, or dancing to your own rhythm without anyone telling you you're off beat. I didn't walk away out of anger. I walked away to protect my peace. And if there's one thing I've learned in all of this, it's that peace is worth everything.